You have no right to obstruct justice here. Answer the question right now, or you'll be held in contempt.
Coat slick with rain. Step away from the vehicle, Palmer barked, hand already hovering near his holster. The young man blinked, startled. It's my car, flat tire. I'm just calling. Hands where I can see them. The command cracked like thunder. Customers froze under the awning. A woman dropped her coffee. The man, Marcus Hill, raised his hands slowly, confusion twisting into something smaller, older. He'd seen this before. Sir, I'm not resisting. Palmer stepped closer, jaw set, voice lower now, rehearsed. We've had reports of a stolen Tesla in this area. You fit the description. Marcus's throat tightened. The description being, what? Don't make this harder. Palmer spun him against the car, cold metal against warmer skin. The flashlight clattered to the ground. Marcus's phone kept ringing on the pavement, Mom flashing across the cracked screen. Inside a downtown boardroom, a woman in her early 50s looked at the name flashing on her phone, then at the officer's badge number on the security feed. Evelyn Hill, CEO of Hilltech Industries, watched as the officer slammed handcuffs around her son's wrists. Her voice, when it finally came, was ice. Get him off my property. Palmer didn't hear her. Not yet. But when the black SUV rolled into the lot 10 minutes later, every witness would say the same thing. The look on the officer's face when he realized who was watching was the first time the rain stopped falling. The rain had begun as a whisper, thin lines tracing down the windshield, soft enough that Marcus Hill barely noticed. He'd left the dinner early, his father's old watch ticking against his wrist as he turned into the quiet gas station off Highway 19. He was tired, not reckless. The Tesla's warning light had come on, rear left tire, slow leak. He parked under the flickering canopy light and stepped out into the drizzle. A hiss of escaping air followed by the sound of gravel crunching under heavy boots. Evening. Officer, Marcus said, glancing up from the tire. Just fixing license and registration. The man's voice was flat. No greeting, no context. Just demand. Officer Grant Palmer's bulk filled the narrow space between pump and car, his hand already resting on his belt. Marcus straightened, puzzled. Sure, they're in the car. Just a sec. Keep your hands where I can see them. The words carried the practiced edge of someone who'd said them too many times, and too often to people who looked like Marcus. I'm reaching into my pocket for my wallet, all right? Don't move, Marcus froze. The rain slid down his temple like cold sweat. Palmer's flashlight beam darted across his face, down his jacket, to the Tesla's glossy hood. Whose car is this? Mine. Registered to you? Yes, sir. Step back, Marcus obeyed. He'd learned long ago that politeness could be armor. Thin, fragile, but sometimes enough. Palmer circled the car, muttering into his radio. Possible match, black Tesla, male suspect on scene. Suspect? Marcus said, voice tight. I told you Quiet. The word hit harder than the rain. A small crowd began to gather. 2 customers under umbrellas, a delivery driver watching from his van. The gas station's neon sign hummed above, its reflection dancing on the wet pavement. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Mom flashing on the screen. Palmer's hand snapped out. Put that down. It's just I said down. The phone hit the ground, screen cracking. The sound, sharp, final, made everyone flinch. Officer? Please, Marcus tried again. I can show you my license. Palmer moved faster than thought, twisting Marcus's arm, shoving him against the hood. The cold metal burned through his jacket. You're under arrest for suspicion of vehicle theft. What? Don't resist. I'm not resisting. His words echoed across the lot, mingling with the sound of rain and gas pumps. The crowd stayed silent. Phones rose like witnesses no one wanted to be. Palmer tightened the cuffs, voice low but shaking now, unsure. You people always have an excuse. Marcus stopped struggling. He looked over his shoulder, met the officer's eyes. Yeah, he said quietly. And you always have a reason. The rain intensified. Palmer radioed in the arrest, his tone clipped and official. The crowd began to disperse. Only one woman kept filming, her face pale beneath the canopy light. Marcus stared at his cracked phone on the pavement. The call from Mom had gone to voicemail, and miles away in a tower of glass and steel, Evelyn Hill watched the live security feed flicker onto her screen, just as her son's wrists disappeared under steel. She rose from her chair. No words, just motion, fast, deliberate, unstoppable. The storm had found its witness. The boardroom windows framed the city like a silent documentary, wet streets glowing with the reflections of late-night traffic, the skyline half swallowed by fog. Evelyn Hill didn't look at any of it. Her eyes were on the wall-mounted monitor streaming live footage from Hilltech's private security grid. Her assistant hesitated in the doorway. "Ma'am, you should see this." Evelyn didn't need prompting. She was already watching. On screen, an officer's flashlight glared into the lens, distorting his face into a blur of authority and rain. The timestamp flickered. The audio was faint, but the scene was unmistakable. Her son, Marcus, pressed against the hood of his Tesla, handcuffs glinting. For a moment, she said nothing. Her nails tapped once on the table, steady, precise. "Where?" she asked. "East Station lot." Gas stop near the highway. Her head tilted slightly, a fraction of a nod. Patch in the ground audio feed. Static filled the speakers, then the officer's voice, harsh, unyielding. "You people always have an excuse." The boardroom went silent except for that one line. Evelyn's assistant, young, nervous, shifted her weight. "Should I call security?" Evelyn's voice cut through the static. "He's on my property." "Yes, ma'am. The lot's part of Hilltech's district perimeter, private surveillance zone. Then that officer is detaining my son on private ground." Her tone didn't rise. It lowered, condensing power into precision. She turned to the security chief, who'd appeared without being summoned, tablet in hand. "Michael, extract all footage from 2100 to 2130. Every angle. Push it to legal in encrypted format." "Yes, ma'am. Notify counsel. I want a civil rights specialist on retainer before midnight." He hesitated. "You want this internal or public?" Evelyn looked back at the screen. Marcus standing in the rain, silent, jaw set, surrounded by stares that said everything the officer's words didn't. "Public," she said. "But clean. No leaks until I control the narrative." The assistant swallowed. "Ma'am, it might go viral on its own?" "It will," Evelyn replied. "That's the point." She walked to the window, watching headlights streak below like white veins through the city. Her reflection stared back, composed, immaculate, but eyes too sharp to be calm. For a heartbeat, she wasn't the CEO of Hilltech Industries. She was a mother remembering the first time her son called from a traffic stop, his voice trembling but measured, trying not to sound afraid. Back then, she'd told him to stay calm, to be polite, to survive. And now here it was, proof that survival sometimes wasn't enough. The screen beeped. "File export complete." Evelyn turned. "Get the footage to our PR head. And Michael, pull Palmer's badge number from the stream. I want his record." He hesitated. "There might be pushback, ma'am."
"Internal affairs. Then they can push back in writing." Her words cut the air clean. The assistant dared to ask, "Should I prepare a statement?"
"Not yet." Evelyn's gaze stayed fixed on the frozen frame of Marcus being led to the cruiser. "We'll speak when he's released. Until then, silence has weight. Let them feel it." She moved toward her desk, heels clicking in the hush of the boardroom. The skyline outside pulsed like a live wire. The city oblivious to what had just begun. Her phone buzzed. Marcus's name. Missed call, 2114. She stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen. Then set it down. To the room, she said evenly. "Pull the cruiser GPS. I want confirmation he's being taken to East Precinct." "Yes, ma'am. And someone wake up legal. Tell them to prepare for a civil rights violation. Document everything." As the team scattered into motion, Evelyn exhaled for the first time in minutes. The taste of metal lingered in her mouth like static before lightning. From the monitor came the faint sound of the officer's radio. Formal, cold, procedural. "Suspect in custody," the words echoed. She whispered, barely audible. "Not suspect, son." The rain outside thickened, drumming harder against the glass. The city lights blurred until it looked as though the whole skyline were underwater. In the reflection, Evelyn's face was unflinching. Beneath the calm, there was something sharper, grief alloyed with resolve. She pressed the intercom button. "Have the car brought around." "We're going to the station," the reply crackled back. "Immediately, ma'am." Evelyn looked once more at the frozen feed. Her son's figure blurred by rain. Then she turned off the screen. The room plunged into silence. Heavy, electric, waiting for impact. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Merciless and pale, Marcus sat on a metal bench inside a gray holding room that smelled faintly of disinfectant and damp concrete. His wrists throbbed from the cuffs. The station was half empty, graveyard shift quiet. But the echo of boots and laughter down the corridor carried like static. Across the room, Officer Grant Palmer was filling out paperwork. His expression caught somewhere between pride and irritation. He spoke to the desk sergeant in low tones, words clipped and practiced. Picked him up near the 19 station, Palmer said. Matched the description. Vehicle possibly stolen, the sergeant didn't look up. Got ID? Not yet. He got mouthy. Marcus's voice came steady, dry. You didn't give me a chance. Palmer shot him a look. Don't start, the sergeant sighed. Grant, just process him. If it checks out clean, we'll release him. Palmer muttered. Yeah. He turned toward Marcus. Name? You have my wallet, Marcus said evenly. Palmer flipped it open, eyes scanning. Marcus D. Hill, address downtown. Occupation? Vice President. Hilltech Industries, Palmer smirked. Cute, Marcus didn't respond. He'd learned silence could sometimes say more than words. A young officer at the next desk, barely 25, leaned toward Palmer. Hilltech? That's the company that does all the AI security systems, right? Palmer's shrug was dismissive. Doesn't matter who he says he is. He'll wait like everyone else, the sergeant interjected. Run the plates, minutes passed. The keyboard clicks were the only rhythm. Marcus watched his reflection in the glass partition. Tired eyes, wet collar, the faint tremor in his hands he kept hidden in his lap. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was calculating. When the young officer returned, he was holding a printout. Plates come back registered to Marcus Hill. Tesla Model X, vehicles clear. The sergeant raised an eyebrow. You sure? Confirmed through DMV, Hilltech lease program. The silence that followed felt surgical. Palmer's jaw flexed. There's got to be a mistake. There's not, the sergeant said. Release him, Palmer hesitated. You want me to just, I said release him. The sergeant turned his attention to Marcus, voice flat but neutral. You're free to go, Mr. Hill. Apologies for the inconvenience. Marcus rose slowly. His wrists ached as Palmer removed the cuffs, the metal scraping against skin. Inconvenience, Marcus repeated softly, rolling the word like a test. Palmer looked away. Procedure, that's all. Marcus met his gaze directly. Your procedure looks a lot like profiling. The room froze for a second, too quiet, too aware. Palmer's face hardened. Watch your tone. I did. All night. For the first time, the sergeant looked uncomfortable. Mr. Hill, if you'd like to file a complaint. Oh, I will. Marcus took his wallet back, slipping it into his pocket with deliberate calm. You'll be hearing from counsel soon, Palmer scoffed. But his hands were trembling as he signed the last form. As Marcus walked toward the exit, the young officer whispered under his breath, not unkindly. Hey, sorry, man. Some people don't think before they act. Marcus paused at the doorway. Some people don't have to. He left the station without another word. In the hallway, Palmer leaned against the wall, heartbeat thudding in his ears. The adrenaline was gone now, replaced by something sour. He looked down at the form again, Marcus D. Hill, and the company logo stamped at the top of the registration, Hilltech Industries. His stomach dropped. He walked to the terminal and typed in the name. The search returned a result almost immediately. Company bio, Forbes article, recent awards. Marcus Hill, Vice President of Global Operations. Son of Evelyn Hill, CEO. Christ, Palmer whispered. The sergeant looked over. What? Palmer's voice cracked. You know who that was? Does it matter? It will, Palmer said quietly. The young officer frowned. Why? Palmer didn't answer. His mind was already racing, policy reports, body cam footage, the words he'd said. The phone dropped on the pavement. He replayed it in fragments. You people always have an excuse. It hadn't even registered when he said it. It came out like muscle memory, reflex dressed as authority. Now it echoed. The sergeant's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, eyebrows tightening. City Dispatch says Hilltech's legal team's asking for footage already. Palmer froze. Already? Yeah, they want the arrest log, officer report, body cam data. All of it. The sergeant turned toward him, a look that wasn't sympathy. You better start writing that report real careful, Grant. Palmer exhaled, heavy and uneven. I did everything by the book. You sure about that? He didn't answer. Outside, Marcus stood beneath the flickering streetlight, rain easing into mist. He took a long breath, the kind that tries to wash something away but can't. He looked at his cracked phone screen, the reflection of the police station distorted through fractured glass. One missed call, then another, Mom. He didn't pick up. Not yet. Instead, he typed a single text. I'm fine. Heading home. Seconds later, the reply came. Already there. He looked up, and through the curtain of drizzle saw a black SUV parked across the street, engine idling. The driver stepped out, umbrella in hand, expression unreadable. Mr. Hill, the man said quietly. Ms. Evelyn sent me. Marcus didn't speak. He got into the car without a word. As the vehicle pulled away, he glanced back at the precinct. The pale light behind the glass. The faint movement of Palmer pacing inside. The city rolled by in silence. Marcus leaned his head against the window and closed his eyes. The storm had shifted. The real one was just beginning. The East Precinct lobby had never been so quiet. Every voice seemed to have evaporated into the sterile air as Evelyn Hill stepped through the sliding glass doors. Her black coat glistened from the rain, her heels striking the tiled floor like a metronome. Two attorneys flanked her, both carrying slim leather folders. At the front desk, the sergeant on duty straightened instantly. Ma'am, this area's Evelyn didn't look up. I'm here for my son, Marcus Hill. You processed him an hour ago. The sergeant hesitated. He's been released, I know. That's why I'm here to speak to the officer who detained him. He cleared his throat, glancing toward a hallway. Officer Palmer's still finishing paperwork. Evelyn's attorney spoke, tone crisp. Then have him finish it in her presence. The sergeant's hand twitched toward the phone. Evelyn's eyes met his, calm, unyielding. No need to call anyone. I'm not here to disrupt. I'm here to correct. From the corridor came the sound of boots. Palmer emerged, still in uniform, holding his cap under one arm. He froze when he saw her. Officer Palmer, Evelyn said, her voice smooth as glass. You're the one who detained my son. He tried to square his shoulders. Yes, ma'am. Standard procedure, possible stolen vehicle report. Possible, she repeated. Based on what? He hesitated. Description matched. Blackmail, Tesla, night hours, her attorney interjected. Do you have a written report of that alleged description? Palmer's mouth opened, closed again. Not on hand. Evelyn's expression didn't shift. So you acted on a hunch. Ma'am, I was doing my job. Your job, she interrupted, is to enforce law, not prejudice. My son was fixing a tire on his own vehicle, on property belonging to Hilltech Industries. My property? You detained him, cuffed him, humiliated him, in front of cameras that belonged to me. Palmer's throat tightened. I didn't know who he was. That's the problem, Evelyn said quietly. You didn't need to know who he was. You just needed to see him. The words landed like small explosions, soft in sound, devastating in effect. A crowd had begun to form behind the desk, officers pretending to work, eyes flicking toward the confrontation. The sergeant whispered something into his phone. Minutes later, Captain Morris appeared, smoothing his uniform with a diplomat's smile. Ms. Hill, he began, I assure you, we take these matters seriously. Officer Palmer was responding to a call. Misunderstandings happen. Misunderstandings. Evelyn cut in. Don't end with my son in handcuffs. Morris's smile faltered. There'll be an internal review. There will be a civil review, she said. And a public one. I have body cam footage, property surveillance, and audio recording of your officer's language. Palmer's head snapped up. Language? Her attorney flipped open a folder. Quote, you people always have an excuse. The silence afterward was glacial. Morris looked at Palmer. Is that accurate? Palmer stammered. It was taken out of context. Evelyn turned to him fully, her tone measured, precise. Context doesn't cleanse bias. It reveals it. For the first time, Palmer looked small, damp uniform, eyes flicking between apology and defiance. Ms. Hill, Morris said quickly, we'd prefer to handle this internally before the press. The press is already handling it, Evelyn replied. A recording is circulating online as we speak. Your department's silence will not contain it. Her other attorney added, we advise full cooperation moving forward. Immediate release of all internal documentation. Any obstruction will be treated as retaliation. Morris exhaled through his nose, nodding tightly. We'll comply. Evelyn looked past him to Palmer. "Officer, look at me." He did, slowly. "My son has spent his life learning to move carefully in spaces that see him as threat before man. Tonight you confirmed why." He swallowed hard. "Oh, don't apologize," she said. "Fix it. That's your only way forward." She turned to leave, the attorneys following. The entire room seemed to part as she passed, like water forced aside by weight. At the door, she paused. "Captain, ensure my son's property, his phone, his belongings are returned. I expect confirmation within the hour." "Yes, ma'am." Outside, the rain had stopped. Her SUV waited under the streetlight, engine running. Evelyn climbed in, closing the door softly. Marcus sat inside, silent. His hands were clasped together, knuckles white. "She really did it, didn't she?" he murmured. Evelyn looked ahead at the wet asphalt reflecting the lights. "I did what any mother would." Marcus smiled faintly. "No, you did what you would." For the first time that night, a hint of warmth crossed her expression. "Get some rest. Tomorrow it begins." "What does?" "The reckoning," she said simply. Behind them, in the glass doors of the precinct, Palmer still stood, motionless, drenched in fluorescent light, watching as the black SUV disappeared into the night. Morning crept over the city like a slow bruise, gray, heavy, reluctant to lighten. The news cycle ignited before sunrise. Screens across downtown flickered with the same headline: Hilltech CEO's son wrongfully arrested. Officer under investigation. Inside City Hall, the press office was chaos. Phones ringing, advisors whispering. Screens glowing with live feeds of Evelyn Hill's terse statement from the night before. No citizen should fear being treated as a suspect for existing in their own skin. The words were calm, but the weight behind them shook everything that depended on silence. At the center of the swirl sat Mayor Collins, sleeves rolled, voice sharp. "How bad is it?" His communications director, Jenna Lyle, flipped through a tablet. "Every outlet's running the footage." Hilltech's lawyers confirmed the timestamp and GPS data. "The department's already facing calls for suspension." Collins rubbed his temples. "We cannot afford a corporate war. Hilltech bankrolls half this city's tech contracts." The police chief, Harold Denton, sat across from him, broad, weary, unshaven. "We'll handle it internally. Palmer's got a clean record until now." Jenna gave him a cold look. "That clean record includes 6 unfiled complaints buried in admin." The mayor's tone hardened. "You're telling me you knew?" Denton hesitated. "We didn't have evidence to pursue." "You didn't want evidence," Jenna snapped. "That's different." The mayor leaned forward. "We need a statement. Something neutral, controlled. Make it sound procedural." "Spin it?" Denton asked flatly. "Contain it," the mayor corrected. "We'll say it's under review. Stress cooperation with Hilltech. No admissions of bias. No talk of misconduct." Jenna scrolled through her draft. "I'll phrase it as an unfortunate misidentification incident currently under investigation." "Good," Collins said. "Release it by noon." Denton shifted uneasily. "And Palmer?" The mayor exhaled. "Suspend him, administrative leave, full pay. Keeps the union calm." "Optics," Jenna muttered. "You'll regret that by lunch." Denton's jaw tightened. He followed instinct. "Exactly the problem," she said. By noon, Palmer sat alone in his kitchen, blinds drawn, phone vibrating nonstop. Every station had his photo by now, cropped from his department ID, smile erased by context. He scrolled through the headlines. Racial profiling allegations rock police department. Officer's words spark national debate. A knock at the door made him flinch. His union rep entered, uninvited, coat still wet. "You're off duty till the review's done," the rep said. "Don't talk to press. Don't post anything. They'll eat you alive." Palmer rubbed his eyes. "I didn't mean for any of this. They'll say intent doesn't matter." "You're the story now. Let legal handle it. She's got money, power, the media. She's got proof," the rep interrupted. "That's worse." Palmer sat back, eyes hollow. "I was just doing my job." "You were doing it loud enough for a microphone to catch." Outside, a camera flash cut across the blinds. Reporters were already camped at the curb. At Hilltech headquarters, the mood was surgical. Evelyn's legal and PR teams occupied an entire floor. Screens streamed live coverage from news outlets, while her communications chief briefed staff. "The department's spinning it as a misunderstanding," the PR director said.
City Hall's statement drops in an hour. Evelyn sat at the head of the table, unmoving.
"They're afraid. Fear makes people predictable." Her counsel nodded. We've drafted a counter, factual, restrained, impossible to ignore. Release it, she said, immediately. No, wait until the mayor speaks. Then dismantle his version line by line. She looked to the head of security. How's the data integrity check?
Flawless.
Audio and video both authenticated. No tampering. Good, she said softly. Then they'll have no room to lie. At 1 p.m., the mayor's statement aired. Calm, bureaucratic, bloodless. The city deeply regrets the incident involving Mr. Marcus Hill. We are working with Hill Tech Industries to ensure transparency and accountability. Minutes later, Evelyn's counterstatement went live. Transparency is not granted by institutions that protect bias. It's demanded by those harmed by it. Accountability begins when silence ends. The internet exploded. News tickers rolled her quote across screens nationwide. Comment sections flooded with outrage, solidarity, argument, disbelief. In City Hall, Jenna closed her laptop. You've lost the story, sir. The mayor looked at Denton. Get her on the phone, now. Denton nodded grimly. You mean Evelyn Hill? No, the mayor said. The mother I just made my biggest enemy. Across town, in her office high above the city, Evelyn watched the feeds go silent one by one as networks moved from the mayor's voice to hers. Her assistant entered quietly. Ma'am, CNN wants an interview. Decline. For now. Should I tell them why? Evelyn turned toward the rain-streaked window, the city glimmering beneath it. Because we're not finished yet. She glanced at her watch. Marcus would be arriving soon. The next move wasn't about press or policy. It was about truth, and truth, she knew, didn't need to shout. It just needed to survive long enough to be undeniable. Marcus arrived at Hill Tech headquarters under discreet security escort. The streets outside were lined with cameras, protesters, and an air of electricity that belonged to moments before something irreversible. He stepped through the glass doors into the lobby, a monument of steel and silence. Every movement echoed. Every eye turned toward him. He had worn the same gray jacket from the night of the arrest, not as a symbol but as a reminder. Evelyn met him in the top-floor boardroom. She didn't speak at first. She studied him the way a scientist studies evidence, quietly, precisely. You shouldn't be here, she said finally. The building's under siege by press. I'm not hiding anymore. You're trending worldwide, she said. Your face, your name, your restraint. They're calling you everything from a hero to a symbol. I'm not a symbol. Neither was I, she said. Until they made me one, he sat down. You're planning something. I'm releasing a public statement tonight, she said. Not another interview, not a press soundbite, a live address, unfiltered, broadcast through our network channels. He frowned. You're going over the city's head. I'm going through it, she corrected. Straight to the people. He looked at her. And you want me to speak. I want you to decide whether to. In another part of the city, Officer Palmer stood in a dark briefing room with his union attorney. The fluorescent lights hummed above, sterile and cruel. They're going to hang you out to dry, the lawyer said flatly. The mayor's office needs a scapegoat, and Denton's giving them one. I didn't break any law. You broke optics, the lawyer said. That's worse, Palmer sat in silence. Every justification he had clung to over the past 2 days had dissolved into noise. The arrest replayed in his mind, the tone of his voice, the certainty with which he had assumed guilt. He wasn't sure anymore which part of it was duty and which part was fear. The lawyer's phone buzzed. It's starting, he said. Hill Tech's broadcast, 7 modern p.m. Hill Tech Auditorium, a single stage, a simple lectern. No logos, no banners, just Evelyn Hill standing beneath a white spotlight. The city skyline burning blue behind her, she began without preamble. 3 nights ago, my son was arrested for driving the car he owns, accused of stealing what he built. He was questioned, restrained, and humiliated. Because bias, when institutionalized, becomes invisible to those inside it. Her voice didn't rise. It cut. This is not an isolated event. It is the predictable outcome of a system calibrated to distrust difference. We have been told that progress is slow, that reform takes time. But delay is not progress, it is preservation of harm. She paused. The room, the cameras, the millions watching held still. Hill Tech will fund an independent review of city law enforcement data, stops, arrests, demographics, outcomes. The findings will be made public. No cooperation, no contracts. Transparency will no longer be negotiable. Then she turned, gesturing. Marcus stepped forward. The room drew breath. He approached the lectern slowly, eyes on the crowd but mind elsewhere. The station floor, the officer's face, his own silence. "I didn't come here to talk about forgiveness," he began. "Forgiveness without accountability is permission. What happened to me isn't unique. It's routine." He scanned the audience, cameras blinking like watchful eyes. "I don't want to destroy anyone. I want to expose something. Because if a man in a suit driving a registered car can be assumed a threat, then imagine what happens off camera to those without witnesses." He stopped. The pause stretched long enough to make everyone aware of their own breathing. "Change doesn't start in policy," he said quietly. "It starts in recognition. And recognition starts with truth." He stepped back. Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder. Steady, unperformative. In City Hall, Mayor Collins watched the feed from his office. Silence filled the room when the speech ended. Jenna spoke first. "You just lost every contract negotiation for next quarter." He didn't reply. Denton's voice came through the intercom. "We can still frame this as political grandstanding." "Don't," the mayor said. "Not this time." He looked out the window. Down below, small clusters of people were gathering around portable screens and phones. The speech was spreading faster than any city statement ever had. Back in his apartment, Palmer sat alone again. The room was dark except for the blue light of the television replaying the address. When Marcus spoke the words, "Recognition starts with truth," Palmer froze. Something in him cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to shift the weight he had carried for years. He turned off the TV and sat in the silence that followed. No reporters, no lawyers, no justification, just quiet. Outside, sirens wailed distantly, ordinary sounds of a city still learning how to see itself. He leaned back, eyes unfocused, and for the first time in his career, he didn't reach for his badge, he just listened. The morning after the broadcast, the city pulsed like a wound. Screens replayed clips from Evelyn's speech. Social feeds flooded with fragments of Marcus's words. Every news anchor spoke the same phrase: "Hilltech challenges the system." At East Precinct, the shift room was silent. Palmer entered without his badge. The chief glanced up, eyes heavy. "You're being reassigned pending investigation," the chief said. "Internal Affairs is formalizing suspension." Palmer nodded. "Understood." He placed his badge on the desk. The metal clicked against the surface, a small, definitive sound. "You can appeal," the chief said, though his tone made it clear appeals meant nothing now. Palmer said nothing. He turned and left the room that had once given him identity. The fluorescent lights flickered behind him, like a system trying to stay alive after the power was already cut. At Hilltech, Evelyn faced a board divided. "This could destabilize our contracts with the city," one director warned. "It already has," Evelyn replied. "But we'll survive. They can't blacklist innovation. You're making us a political target. I'm making us a moral precedent." The tension thickened. Cameras outside the building had tripled overnight. Hilltech's stock had dipped, but public sentiment was overwhelmingly supportive. Evelyn leaned forward. "If a business this large refuses to tolerate bias, others will follow. That's not risk. That's leverage," silence answered her. The board knew she was right, but truth rarely felt safe. Marcus sat in the cafeteria below, coffee untouched, reading messages that filled his phone. Some grateful, some furious. A security officer approached quietly. "Sir, there's someone outside requesting to speak with you." Marcus frowned. "Who?" "Officer Palmer." The cup froze halfway to his lips. "You're sure?" The guard nodded. "He's unarmed. Waiting by the fountain." Outside, the drizzle had returned, soft, uncommitted rain that blurred the skyline. Palmer stood with hands clasped behind his back, his uniform traded for plain clothes. Marcus walked toward him, stopping a few feet away. Neither spoke for a long time. The air carried the low hum of distant traffic, the sound of a city listening. Finally, Palmer said, "I watched your speech." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I wasn't speaking to you." "I know. Then why are you here?" Palmer hesitated, to see what accountability feels like. Marcus studied him. No arrogance now, no defense. Just a man hollowed by realization. "You think saying that fixes it?" "No," Palmer said. "I don't expect it to. I just needed to stand here in front of you without a badge to hide behind." Rain dripped from the edge of Palmer's coat. He looked smaller somehow, stripped of authority but heavier with awareness. "When I cuffed you," he said quietly, "I thought I was doing my job, but I was doing something else. Something I was taught to see as order." Marcus's voice was steady but cold. "And you only see it now because the world saw you." Palmer nodded. "Probably. That's the truth." They stood in silence again, two outlines against the gray glass of Hilltech's facade, one burdened by legacy, the other by damage. Finally, Marcus said, "I don't want an apology. I'm not offering one." "Good." Palmer's gaze dropped to the pavement. "What will you do now?" "Keep building," Marcus said. "Something that outlasts both of us." Palmer gave a slow nod, turned, and walked away without another word. Marcus watched until he disappeared into the crowd. That evening, Evelyn sat in her office overlooking the skyline. The rain had stopped. Below, streetlights reflected in puddles like fractured constellations. Marcus entered without knocking. "He came," he said. "I know," she replied. "Security told me. I didn't forgive him. I didn't ask you to." He looked out at the city lights. "Do you think this changes anything?" Evelyn folded her hands. "Change is slow until it isn't. You broke silence in a way they can't unhear." Marcus leaned against the glass. "Feels like noise, not change." "That's how it starts," she said. "Noise becomes rhythm. Rhythm becomes movement," he turned to her. "And when it fades, then you speak again." Their eyes met. No triumph, no relief, only shared exhaustion carved by consequence. Evelyn rose, placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did more than survive this time," he nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Outside, a news drone hovered over the Hilltech sign, broadcasting the image citywide. Mother and son silhouetted against glass, symbols of confrontation neither sought but could no longer escape. The city buzzed with their names, with speculation, with anger and hope braided together. In one apartment window miles away, Palmer watched that same feed muted. He stared at the image until the screen dimmed to black. Then he shut off the television, the badge still lying untouched on his kitchen table. He didn't pick it up. He just let the quiet hold him. Its weight, its cost, its truth, and outside, the city exhaled, the rain returning soft as breath, washing the night clean but not empty. Morning broke clean and sharp over the skyline. For the first time in days, no helicopters hovered above Hilltech. The city had quieted, but it wasn't peace. It was the breath before something larger learned how to move. Marcus woke before dawn, the light washing his apartment in silver. On the table lay two objects, the citation report from his arrest and a folded letter from the city attorney, notifying him of Palmer's suspension. He read neither. He didn't need more evidence. The truth was already public, irreversible. His phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn, press outside. "Legal ready, you?" He replied, "Coming." At City Hall, Mayor Collins faced a chamber heavy with scrutiny. Reporters filled every row. Behind him, the city seal gleamed under two bright lights. "Effective immediately," he announced. "The East Precinct will undergo full audit and external review. Officer Palmer has been placed on indefinite suspension pending outcome. The department will partner with Hilltech's Data Transparency Initiative." Hands shot up across the room. A journalist called out, "Is this reform or damage control?" The mayor met her gaze. Sometimes they're the same beginning. Flashes erupted. Dozens of photos capturing an official finally bowing to pressure not from protests, but from proof. At Hilltech, Evelyn and Marcus sat in her office as the announcement streamed live. "It's not justice," Marcus said quietly. "No," Evelyn agreed. "It's momentum." She paused, looking at her son. "They'll call this a victory. Don't let them forget the cost." He leaned back in his chair. "The cost never leaves." Her phone rang, another reporter, another statement request. She silenced it. "You're trending again," she said dryly. Marcus half smiled. "This time for what?" "For not saying anything. Silence works when you've already spoken the truth." 2 weeks later, the city felt different, not transformed, but awake. A mural had appeared overnight on a downtown wall. Marcus in grayscale, eyes forward with the words, "Assumption is not evidence." Tourists took photos. Activists laid flowers. Hilltech's headquarters became an informal gathering site for those demanding reform, though Evelyn never addressed them directly again. Inside, She returned to work as if nothing extraordinary had happened, because for her the extraordinary was never the goal. Continuity was. Marcus, however, had changed. He met with youth organizations, startups, university students. Each conversation circled the same truth. Visibility without voice was currency wasted. Don't wait for the system to invite you in, he told them. Build your own door. Across the city, Palmer lived in a small rented apartment. The department had retrieved his weapon and ID. He spent mornings walking through quiet streets, unnoticed now, unprotected by uniform. He had no statement, no interview, no defense. Only time, long, unstructured, and full of echoes. Sometimes in the middle of the night he replayed that moment on the highway. The sound of cuffs clicking, the rain, the certainty in his voice when he said, "You people always have an excuse." He couldn't erase it, but he could refuse to repeat it. One afternoon he walked to the community center near his block. A poster by the door read, "Youth Dialogue on Policing and Race, Volunteers Needed." He hesitated for a long moment before stepping inside. At the same hour, Evelyn stood in her office again, alone. The skyline outside glowed gold. She had spent weeks in perpetual reaction, meetings, statements, negotiations, but now there was stillness. On her desk lay a simple framed photograph. Marcus, age 10, grinning, holding a science fair ribbon. Back then she had told him he could build anything. She hadn't realized how much he would have to survive first. The intercom buzzed. "Ma'am, the council's requesting a closed meeting about your reform proposal." She answered, "Schedule it. And this time, record everything." Her reflection in the window looked older, sharper, but unbroken. For the first time, she smiled. Not victory, but clarity. Night descended. Marcus walked through the city streets, hood pulled up, blending in with the crowd. The air carried the faint smell of rain again. A digital billboard flickered to life across the... "Then you speak again." Their eyes met. No triumph, no relief, only shared exhaustion carved by consequence. Evelyn rose, placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did more than survive this time." He nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Outside, a news drone hovered over the Hilltech sign, broadcasting the image citywide. Mother and son silhouetted against glass, symbols of confrontation neither sought, but could no longer escape. The city buzzed with their names, with speculation, with anger and hope braided together. In one apartment window miles away, Palmer watched that same feed, muted. He stared at the image until the screen dimmed to black. Then he shut off the television, the badge still lying untouched on his kitchen table. He didn't pick it up. He just let the quiet hold him, its weight, its cost, its truth. And outside, the city exhaled, the rain returning soft as breath, washing the night clean but not empty. Morning broke clean and sharp over the skyline. For the first time in days, no helicopters hovered above Hilltech. The city had quieted, but it wasn't peace. It was the breath before something larger learned how to move. Marcus woke before dawn, the light washing his apartment in silver. On the table lay two objects, the citation report from his arrest and a folded letter from the city attorney notifying him of Palmer's suspension. He read neither. He didn't need more evidence. The truth was already public, irreversible. His phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn. "Press outside, legal ready. You?" He replied, "Coming." At City Hall, Mayor Collins faced a chamber heavy with scrutiny. Reporters filled every row. Behind him, the city seal gleamed under two bright lights. "Effective immediately," he announced. "The East Precinct will undergo full audit and external review. Officer Palmer has been placed on indefinite suspension pending outcome. The department will partner with Hilltech's Data Transparency Initiative." Hands shot up across the room. A journalist called out, "Is this reform or damage control?" The mayor met her gaze. Sometimes they're the same beginning. Flashes erupted, dozens of photos capturing an official finally bowing to pressure not from protests but from proof. At Hilltech, Evelyn and Marcus sat in her office as the announcement streamed live. "It's not justice," Marcus said quietly. "No," Evelyn agreed. "It's momentum." She paused, looking at her son. "They'll call this a victory, Don't let them forget the cost. He leaned back in his chair. The cost never leaves. Her phone rang. Another reporter. Another statement request. She silenced it. "You're trending again," she said dryly. Marcus half smiled. "This time for what?" "For not saying anything. Silence works when you've already spoken the truth." 2 weeks later, the city felt different. Not transformed, but awake. A mural had appeared overnight on a downtown wall. Marcus in grayscale, eyes forward with the words, "Assumption is not evidence." Tourists took photos. Activists laid flowers. Hilltech's headquarters became an informal gathering site for those demanding reform, though Evelyn never addressed them directly again. Inside, she returned to work as if nothing extraordinary had happened, because for her, the extraordinary was never the goal. Continuity was. Marcus, however, had changed. He met with youth organizations, startups, university students. Each conversation circled the same truth. Visibility without voice was currency wasted. "Don't wait for the system to invite you in," he told them. "Build your own door." Across the city, Palmer lived in a small rented apartment. The department had retrieved his weapon and ID. He spent mornings walking through quiet streets, unnoticed now, unprotected by uniform. He had no statement, no interview, no defense. Only time, long, unstructured, and full of echoes. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, he replayed that moment on the highway, the sound of cuffs clicking, the rain, the certainty in his voice when he said, "You people always have an excuse." He couldn't erase it, but he could refuse to repeat it. One afternoon, he walked to the community center near his block. A poster by the door read, "Youth Dialogue on Policing and Race, Volunteers Needed." He hesitated for a long moment before stepping inside. At the same hour, Evelyn stood in her office again, alone. The skyline outside glowed gold. She had spent weeks in perpetual reaction, meetings, statements, negotiations, but now there was stillness. On her desk lay a simple framed photograph. Marcus, age 10, grinning, holding a science fair ribbon. Back then she had told him he could build anything. She hadn't realized how much he would have to survive first. The intercom buzzed. "Ma'am, the council's requesting a closed meeting about your reform proposal." She answered, "Schedule it." And this time, record everything. Her reflection in the window looked older, sharper but unbroken. For the first time she smiled, not victory, but clarity. Night descended. Marcus walked through the city streets, hood pulled up, blending in with the crowd. The air carried the faint smell of rain again. A digital billboard flickered to life across the avenue. Footage from Evelyn's address replayed on loop. He stopped, watching himself speak words he could barely remember delivering. Forgiveness without accountability is permission. The crowd moved around him, but he stood still. Not as a victim, not as a headline, just as a man breathing in a city that finally, faintly, seemed to listen. His phone vibrated. An email from Hilltech Legal. "Case update. City settlement finalized." He didn't open it. Instead, he turned toward the station, the same one where he'd been booked. The glass doors reflected his image now instead of trapping it. Inside, a new sign had been mounted. Community Oversight Program. Transparency. Initiative, in partnership with Hilltech Industries. He looked at it for a long time, then whispered, "That's a start." A passing officer glanced his way, recognized him, and nodded respectfully. No words, just acknowledgement. Small, tentative, real. Marcus nodded back, then turned and walked into the rain. Each step echoed quieter, steadier. Behind him, the city's pulse began to change rhythm, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but undeniably toward something cleaner, something earned. Epilogue, short 100 words. Weeks later, the mural faded under sun and time, but the message didn't. Hilltech's transparency reports reshaped public trust. Marcus founded a scholarship fund for students studying ethics in AI and law enforcement. Palmer taught workshops on accountability to new recruits. Evelyn rarely appeared in public now. She didn't need to. Her silence had become language enough. The city hadn't healed. It had evolved. And somewhere, beneath the hum of new beginnings, the echo of one night's rain still whispered through memory. Not suspect. Son.